Good morning, everyone, or whatever time it is, wherever you are. I know I stream at an awkward time for Americans. We get Americans in the chat if they're up super late. But wherever you are, happy Thursday. And today, we're going to be checking out some of the games that have been sent in. If you want to send in a game, indiegameclinic.com. There is a form on there. Do not email me your games. They will get ignored because I get an awful lot of spam email. Every Thursday, we pick some games with a loose theme, which have been sent in, which haven't been released yet. A few reasons for that. Partly so that we can give them feedback and say, hey, I would like this game if you did this. This game is almost really good, but that kind of stuff. And it's also so that we don't just get used as a marketing channel for complete games. Because, quite frankly, there are enough games in the world. I've already got too many games to play. And most of the games that just emailed me with a key saying, we've just released our game, check it out, are not as interesting to me as the 50 games that have been on my list of shame that I've either purchased and not played yet or have been wanting to play. So, yeah, that's why on Thursdays we focus on unreleased stuff. And today we're looking at 3 auto battlers. And just to give you a little rundown of this genre, well, I'll show you a quick glimpse of what we're looking at today. And if you're watching on the VOD, there will be time stamps for these, so you can skip ahead. We have something called Soul's End. It's kind of a army drafting thing, as you might expect from the genre. Pixel art. That's not a great card to use in a marketing trailer where it says defeat enemies, because you're sort of like presenting that like it's an unusual thing to do in a combat-based game when it's just a basic mechanic of any kind of combat is defeating enemies. But I'm quite excited for this one. Looks neat. I like the presentation. We've also got over here, we've got Leave Us Alone, which is a plant-based one with some very glossy art. We'll see how it actually feels to interact with, because sometimes you see the art, it looks great, and you start clicking on stuff. It doesn't feel so great. We've also got the wonderfully titled I Won't Let You Level Up in My Goblin Town. Not really sure. I mean, this has got an active time battle. I'm not really sure how this works. I think, I mean, what you can see here is it looks like a kind of satirical JRPG where characters are coming in and murdering the goblins, and then you can come in and throw objects at them. So you're sort of, there's an auto battle happening and you're supporting it or influencing it from outside by throwing objects, which seems like a really novel idea. I like the idea of this game. I like the presentation. I'd really like to see that one do well. It's one of those ones that I hope it doesn't let us down, because it's a really neat little idea. But we'll check out Soul's End first, because that's the first one I had up. And my kind of, before we get started, my experience with these games so far, I think the best ones I've had on the channel in the previous year, and part of this is like a bias because they were so heavily based on existing auto battlers that did very well. I really liked Underboard. This is kind of a single player roguelike take on Dota Underlords. And I just think it did it really, really well. Nice art direction, fun kind of sets of characters to upgrade and merge and stuff like that. Also really like Become the Moon, which is kind of a take on Hearthstone Battlegrounds, if you've played that. So Hearthstone Battlegrounds is a completely different mode in Hearthstone that doesn't play anything like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering, where you're sort of like putting the characters down, merging them together. It's actually kind of comes after Underlords and is based on the same sort of stuff, but instead of being on a grid, you're kind of on either sides of a board like in a traditional kind of card dueling game. These two are the best games in this category that I've seen so far. I think there's a lot to be said for like taking the conventions of the games that have already done well and making sure you use as many of them as possible, because it just makes the game easier to understand. So I'm going to be expecting to like, maybe not in the Goblin game because that's kind of a very different thing, but I'm going to be expecting to be like collecting things, merging them together, upgrading them, and like gradually growing the power of the army that I'm building. And I think the other thing that I would look for in an auto battler is how enjoyable is it to watch the auto battles? Because if they're too long, that can kind of spoil the game a bit. And if they are a bit too unpredictable, that can spoil the game a bit. And I know a couple of weeks ago we played, it was like a kingdom building game where you were kind of building a kingdom on a grid and then defending it in waves. And one of the things that was really enjoyable about that was just like when you were watching the auto battles, trying to pinpoint the moment when you thought it was going either way. It made something that was quite passive feel a little bit more active, because it was like you were watching like a horse race or some kind of sport that you were betting on. And that kind of legibility of the auto battle, I think, is kind of important here. So we'll be looking for that as well, I imagine. Let me just hate this thing with certain Steam demos where they say play now, and then you press play, and it hasn't installed it yet, and then it installs it and then immediately opens it. It's really off-putting. Let's check out Soul's End first. This one looks like, I guess, the most conventional one in terms of it being like you get your units, you put them on a grid. Presentation looks pretty nice. Sprites are very small, so I'm going to be thinking about like legibility and how easy is it to tell units apart when they're this small. Like the overall kind of style of the pixel art seems decent. You can see they've put these like selection circles around the two armies so that you can tell who is who. So there's been a bit of thought gone into that side of things, like making sure that you can visually read the game. Just trying to get from the library. I'm now imagining that const in the chat that you have one of those rooms with all of the different clocks from different parts of the world. Some nice ambient sound here. Right. Compendium. I think this is a good shout in one of these games. Just kind of show me the scope of the game at the start. Give me an opportunity to go in and see how much content there is. Because all of the kind of strategic variety of these games comes from, you know, how many things do you give people to master in combination. It's Corin, the man who broke his world. Okay. Behind the blue line, they're in the reserve. Move them over there into battle. That's nice and intuitive. Keeps it all on the same page. Stinky Mocklings. Unit groups are the soldiers you'll employ to fight your enemies. You can hover over them to see their specific stats and traits. Health, damage, movement speed, attack speed, range, knockback, critical chance, critical damage unit. Okay. Item and unit placement is crucial. It can drastically change battle outcomes. I should hope so. Otherwise, this grid will be pointless. When dragging or hovering over an item, you'll see which tiles it affects. You can also rotate items with RM. Okay. Cool. Relics, which are found at the top of the screen, can also have a huge impact on battles. We love a relic. During battle, you can use your spell to shift the odds in your favor. Use space or click the spell icon at the bottom of the screen to activate targeting. Then aim and press left mouse button when you... Yeah, okay. After each battle, you can buy unit groups and items by clicking with left mouse button or dragging them. Yep. 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 This is a lot of preloading of information. Not ideal. I'm fine with it, but you will probably find when you do this kind of preloading kind of tutorialization, you will find that lots of people don't take it all in and then get a little way into the game, have missed some crucial piece of information, and then they're complaining to you about how the game doesn't work the way that they expect because they haven't been made to learn the information in the tutorial. They've just been told the stuff. That's just something to be aware of because you will get a lot of people doing that. Your will is your like overall health in the game, your kind of meta health. Choose an encounter. Shop contains 2 units, 1 item. Shop contains 4 units. Let's go for the one with the most units to start with. What's that? Is that a mummy? Mummies? I'm going to bring our peasants in. Over here. Right at the front. Start. I really like that. So it is like a little mini army, and then when the battle starts, it splits up. There's something very appealing about that, because it makes it easy to manage them on the initial grid, but then it still gives you the kind of appeal of a big old army. Soul coins. Don't mind if I do. So the 5 there is how many units are in that army. And then we can get some more units. Get some more peasants. Get some rune scholars. I don't think I've got enough money for any of them though. Because I've only got 10. It's a bit sad. So, what does fungal rot do? When at 50% health, activate all on death effects early. Works once per battle. So you can put that on like a tank unit, and when they reach half health, they're gonna be able to like prematurely trigger their kind of death rattle ability. That's cool. And this is the kind of stuff that I want to see really early on in this kind of game, because we're seeing these rules in the game that are like, when this happens, then this happens. And those are the building blocks that you give to the player in order for them to actually play the game. Because I think it's quite easy for someone to go into making this type of game, which is fundamentally an engine building game, with if they don't have enough understanding of the genre and they just look at one of these and go, oh, that's easy, I could make that, and just make it all about like little incremental stat boosts. But that's not really the juice for strategy and tactics game players. We want this kind of stuff. We want, when this happens, then this happens, so that we can try and create scenarios in the battle where particular sets of conditions trigger and something else happens, right? That's the stuff that players of these games want, and it's very encouraging to see it just there from the get-go, because to me that shows me that this developer understands this genre and is like making a type of game that they like and understand, which is, you know, what we care about here. Okay, I'm gonna just get this poison dagger for my peasants, and then I'm going to put it on. Okay. So I think the way the items work, you don't actually put them into the unit and like merge them with the unit. You just put them on the battlefield, and then they've got like a space they affect. So that gives them envenomed, and then now they've got it, I think. I'm not totally sure. The UX is a little bit confusing, but I feel like we'll get it pretty quick. So it seems like the items are a lot cheaper than the units. So maybe at the start of the game we want to go for the rooms that have more items than units, and then later on go for units. I don't think we're gonna survive this, but I do have my lightning bolt spell as well on space button. So I need to remember to use that. Yeah. We lost the battle, so I think we're going to lose some of this will down here. Losing the will to live. Grob dusted. On critical hit, heal 2 times the unit's critical damage. Interesting. So I can put that there. And that there. And that gives them... Oh, I thought that was a better critical chance. That's fine. Okay, so this guy's got loads of critical stacked stuff. It would have been better if we got something that boosted their critical chance, but didn't have the option to do that. Yeah, it is a bit like it. There's a kind of spatial puzzle of how you... Not just how you arrange the units, but the items, you can kind of constantly rearrange them. And that means that, for example, this clover, if I have units... If I have 4 units and put them all around the clover, they're all going to get the damage boost from that. Yes, it's kind of a really interesting system. Feels like it would be hell to balance, but... I think as long as your players don't find whatever the busted version of the game is too early on, then you're alright. This is why, like, games like this, you really probably do need to put some sort of... I know it's very kind of like corporate and mobile gamey, but some sort of analytics in it so that you can see what in your game is the busted thing. And that's not because like we really, really care about fairness and not letting the players win too easily. It's because if you let the players win too easily, you will ruin the game for them. So you need some way of tracking, like if there's a particular thing that is so broken in the game that it just always wins for you, then you do want to nerf certain things. Not too reactively and too fast, but if you don't have any kind of analytics and you're just depending on people to tell you in the reviews, oh, I stopped playing this game because once I worked out that you could use the electric arrows and the fandangler, then it became boring because I just used them every time. You know, that kind of thing. You do have the benefit in any kind of roguelike of the randomness, so even if players develop a favorite strategy, they can't do it every time anyway, just because of drops. Oh, we can add an extra unit. We can give them an extra unit in their little army. So they'll put this here now. Put this here, and now we've got 6 guys there. Yep, you want your spreadsheets. You want an easy sort of thing that you can just plop a CSV in the game. I think we might actually win a match now. I think what I learned there is that having one more unit makes way more of a difference than any of these other things, but that might just be a bias. We've got some drunken dwarves. I want drunken dwarves. Or we've got stinky mucklings or drunken dwarves. The drunken dwarves are stout. They take less damage from melee unit. And when you do a re-roll, the group gains 3 more damage. So this is a re-roll, I guess. So if we get them now, every time we re-roll the shop, they become more powerful. That's a cool ability. These guys have a chance of giving you more money. I'm gonna go with the drunken dwarves. Let me get them. I'll put them up here. I'm going to put them up here, actually. I want them right at the front. They're still diagonal from the clover so that they get the benefit. One of the things I would like in this, I can already feel that it would be quite good to be able to click and drag everything and move it at once. Because if I want to move them back from the starting point so that I have more space around here to add items to the dwarves, I have to do this. That's going to be incredibly tedious. But I'll do it anyway. You know, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm already liking this. This feels like the sort of thing I could get quite deeply into. Some genies. Got our little health bars at the bottom. Uh-oh. Oof. Still get some rewards, though. Right, we're gonna make the drunken dwarves slower, but with more health, and they get thorned, which means they give poison to enemies that attack them. That seems like a pretty decent upgrade. And we don't have enough to do anything else, but what I can do is re-roll them. So these guys, their damage increases, which is the red sword. That's 20 now. So if I re-roll 23, I'm just going to spend all the rest of my things on re-rolls. There we go. Wouldn't let me do any more re-rolls. On ally unit death, 15% chance to gain 1. Yeah, let's do that. That's going to be more valuable if we've got more armies, but I don't think we were off to a great start. I mean, I'm still alive, I guess. I can't quite see where the will bar is. This is like the overall health bar during the combat, right? And then it said in the tutorial, it said, this is your will. Is it this? Is this? Ah, this. Okay, this is our overall health, right? So this is kind of what happens when you have a tutorial that sort of shows you full screen things instead of like pointing to bits of the interface and stuff like that. 1 unit amount gives connected. Connected, reduce spell cooldown. Okay, let's have... We put that there, and then they both get the Thorned ability. And we don't have enough for a unit. So we're going to just put the Peasant Crown there and get another Drunken Dwarf. So we've got 6 in both armies now. Yeah. Take that, bats. Right, I'm going to save up the money because I think we need more armies. I think that's probably more important than leveling up the one or empowering the ones we've got. I like that little sequence as well. That's neat. It feels like it's kind of tapping into the sort of Vampire Survivors-y, slot machine-y, lots of shiny things going on in a way that feels very sort of like it kind of works in this fantasy setting. Hunters, Ranger, Boar Riders, Melee. I want some ranged units. So let's get those guys and then just see if there's anywhere I can put them where they will benefit from stuff we already have. Down here maybe, so that they get the movement speed boost. Although I don't think we really need that. So okay. I'm going to move this healing thing over here because the dwarves are like my frontline tanks. So the thing where they get to heal themselves is probably pretty helpful. And then these guys stay here because all of this stuff interacts pretty well. That is giving a movement speed to both of these guys. I don't know if my backline guys really need the movement speed, but that's fine. And then we've put the poison on the archers so that the ranged units have the poison now. And then I guess because we've put poison on a unit, we want to give it as much attack speed as possible because that's just a classic sort of classic action RPG thing of like if you have a small percentage chance of something, you just want to increase the chance of it happening by increasing the attack speed. You all know this. You've played a video game before. I hope that people who watch this channel have played a video game before. Right, more health. Healthy, healthy. Move the peasant crown back there so our peasant group is bigger, and then put the health amulet there. Oh. Okay. Let's try it. It's got that nice quality of like just, okay, you're going to lose matches, but you can just kind of keep jiggling everything around. And I think the way that this usually works in Auto Battler is you're putting the items on the unit. And that makes the UX a little bit fiddlier because you've often got to click into the unit if you want to take the item back out, if you can at all. Whereas what we're doing here, because just everything goes on the grid and then the items trigger before the combat and go into the armies. There's just something very nice about the way that this UX is designed to sort of deal with something that is maybe a little bit of a problem in the games that this is based on. Spyglass. Increased range. Gotta put that on. Gotta put that on our rangers. I mean, want another ranger next to them. Or we can get some more dwarves or some more peasants. Getting some more dwarves. I'll put them back here because they're not as tough as the other guys. There's a little flash there when you forget to do the spell as well. I don't. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else is happening that's triggering that. But it's helpful because it reminds me that the spell exists, which is like I think that's going to be a recurring UX problem in this type of game. Put autocast on. That's just. I don't know how that decides where to put it, but there isn't really a decision to make at this point. Died. That felt a little bit anticlimactic. I think in games where like failure is such a big part of the loop, you want to make the failure feel a little bit more like a moment. You know, lock the input a little bit, make everything dark and gloomy. We had a little musical sting. It just didn't feel like quite as much of a moment as it should do. But this is really small fry stuff. One of the things I would always say is when people are giving you feedback on something you've done, if the feedback starts to get like into like really piddly things, then that means that the thing overall is probably quite good. It depends who it is, obviously, but you know, if it's someone you trust and they're looking at the thing you're making and they're not, you know, like for example, yesterday, anyone who was in the stream yesterday, we were looking at Valentin from the Discord's game Healer, and I was saying, I feel like a lot of the problems that this game have come from the idea. And even if you change things, it's still a difficult idea to make a good game out of. Whereas in this case, it's like, we know that the idea works because it's in a genre of games that already exists. So it all becomes about the execution. And that means that we can focus on these kind of smaller things like, you know, does it feel satisfying to do this? Is it obvious when this is happening? All that kind of stuff. I'm going to do one more run of this because it's good and I want to play it again. And then we'll move on to the next one. So we've got different characters we start off with that give you basically a different set of starting things. This is a good structure to use in these games as well, because basically these are all things that are from the library of things that you can unlock in the game, right? The spell, you know, one of the relics, one of the units. And doing this gives you another thing to unlock as a player. It also just means that you start the game not having to have like a load of piddly little decisions of like, choose your first unit, choose your first spell, choose your first blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you just get a set of things that the designers decided go together. Choose a parting gift. Gain a random uncommon relic, but lose 15. I'm going to do that one because we don't necessarily want to be playing for as long. So Will is our like overarching health. We've got a Plague Doctor Mask, reduced damage taken from enemies with disease. Okay, cool. Kill some mummies. I've got my spell on autocast. Don't think it's really going to make any difference. Not going to get anything until we've got our second unit. I think that's my strategy this time. Lose some will, obtain a relic. Sure, let's do it. Yeah, what was it? Serpent ring, poisoned lasts 2 times longer. Okay, so we want to spec into stuff that gives you that causes poison. I don't have any opportunities to do that yet. I do like the idea of increasing their range. Or we can give them fire. Let's do it. Let's do it. Peasants that burn stuff. That's thematically satisfying. We've got their pitchforks and their torches. Let's see if anyone gets... Are they ignited? I think I see some fire. Yeah, the sound effects are pretty satisfying. They're not like overwhelming. There's no kind of painful stuff, but it feels kind of... Stuff is happening and it's satisfying. Nope, next encounter. A scarlet fog begins to surround you. It's hard to tell what's ahead, but a light seems to guide you. Follow a gain a lantern. Unknown encounters give you extra money upon entering. Let's do it. Still not got enough for another guy, so we're just going to keep going. Right, the bats should be easy. They seemed pretty easy first time. And they're kind of like the softest units. They're going to kill me now that I've said that. They're going to kill me! I jinxed it. Okay. We've got enough for a second set of peasants. I like the idea of getting some little wizards. Oof. What I'm going to do, I'm going to hold back on getting a second unit, and I'm going to give these guys envenomed so that we can start to use our serpent ring. Because that makes poison more powerful. And we haven't been able to use that in the last couple of combats, so keeping most of my money for now. There we go. We should be able to get someone now. Ragnara Zerkers. On Berserk, on attack, gain 2 damage for the rest of the battle. Sure. Okay. And then I think what we'll do is we'll make sure the Zerkers are using the fire upgrade. And then put the peasants a little bit further back with the poison. We're just getting all the different damage over time stuff this time. Yeah, that's more like it. Sometimes you just need some Zerkers. Increased health and lowered damage. Ooh, okay. Let me just work the puzzle out here. I have to do that if I want them to both have a thing. That could work quite well, though. I think that's maybe quite a good stat for when you're building for damage over time, because it gives all of your abilities a chance to proc. Who else up Zerking there? Ragnara. So they're doing less damage with each hit, but they get to survive longer and put more poison tags down. That's neat. We got some hunters. We can't afford them yet. Quite like the amber fossil upgrade. I mean, you could just make a big grid of these. So I'll put on the frontliners to start off with. Open it. On attack, heal for 10 health if the defender is on fire. Nice. Okay. Oh, that's a relic as well, so I don't even need to put that on the grid. So that's going to work really well with our flame zerkers. Expunger. On attack, gain a stack of expunger. At 3 stack, apply 10 stacks of poison to units within a range of 1 around the hit unit. That's neat. But I think we should save up for our next army. Sandworms! I mean, a lot of what you're seeing here in terms of like the baseline game is how Underlords does things. You've just got this other aspect of like when you place them on the grid, they're a single unit, and then they split into their full army size when you start the combat, which is neat. I haven't seen another game that does that, but I'm also not a super big expert in these things. Right. Stinky Mucklings give us a chance to earn extra gold if they're alive at the end. Which is kind of cool. But we don't have any rangers, so maybe we should get some rangers. What does this do? Increased attack speed and lowered health. That's a perfect thing for the rangers to have. Let's put them down here so they've got protection from our melee units. See how that works. Why are they doing that red thing? What's going on there? This is a way better build than the first time. What does that do? Critical chance and ignite. Put that on the archers as well. Death chance applies withering. Withering traits with the damage over time tag tick 1.2 times faster. So that basically the death touch, the withering ability that you get from the death touch makes both fire and poison more powerful, which is quite good for this army. So the archer is going to pop that on them, and then everything everyone else is doing, it will do more, I guess. Okay, save some money to get another army. Boar riders. Who else up riding their boar? Got a big encounter coming up now. I'm going to have to stop this soon because we've got 2 more games to look at, and I've got like a hard stop in an hour and a bit. But this is great. This is the sort of game I would buy it as is. Feels pretty well balanced already. That's the sort of thing that's hard to really judge until you've been playing something for a while, but you know, I don't feel like a strong pull that I need to do a specific thing every time, which is usually a good sign. Right? When a game is supposed to be like about all these strategic choices, but then it's very clearly obvious that something is better. That's the first thing you want to avoid. I think that's something that if you are a player of these types of games, you just know inherently from playing them. And you know, the thing I keep going on and on about on this channel is you should be making games in genres that you play and understand most of the time, particularly if those are games that involve some sort of strategy or deep thinking, because if you don't understand the thinking that players are doing when they play those games, you're not going to be able to design for it, and that will be the thing that determines if anyone likes your game. Improve the spell. What's in the chest? On battle start, each unit gains an attack speed buff for 12 seconds. Yeah. We'll ignore the negative part of that. I want some of these little wizard guys. One of them. Put him there. He gets all those bonuses. Nothing else I can do from that position. I could get some more peasants, I guess. Let's do it. Let's just for the crack of having a big army. Ah, we've got a different area. I would say like the sand texture on the last area and this ground, they're a little bit too high contrast for what they need to do for the game. Like, I would not use this harsh black in the background here. The 2 colors that you use for that background pattern can be very, very close. They don't need to be so high contrast. Yeah. Pretty great. Swift scimitar. So the way that some of these power-ups work is like you really do have to move them around to get the most out of them, which is a really pleasing little puzzle. We'll put the death touch thing on the boar riders because they're like our shock troops and they'll run in and weaken, because that's the withering effect that makes all of the fire and poison more powerful across the board. Movement speed boost on those 2 guys. Yeah, it's really neat. The spatial puzzle that you get from having to place the items on the grid really, really adds a lot. I'm not, you know, I don't know if it's the first game to do it. People that are like real sickos for these games will know more, but it certainly gives it something that I haven't seen in a lot of games in this genre, and I've been sent a few in the last year or so. It really feels like someone who understands the fundamentals of what makes one of these games good or not, and then is like adding something, and that thing is actually doing something. It's not just like being different for the sake of it, which is always the danger. You know, we do want to do something different. We do want to innovate a little bit, but we don't want it to be for the sake of it. It needs to actually add something to the player experience. And that little spatial puzzle of how you lay things down, really, really great. Just going to see what the dev said about that one, because I do get some notes. I just often don't read them if there's not time. So the developer said, I'm currently struggling with the balancing of the game. I want to provide players with some really fun broken builds but also know that some players who have played for a while say the game has become too easy recently. I also think the boss fights are currently falling a bit flat, ending too quick. If you have any thoughts to improve the pacing or any other pain points you can clearly see, please let me know. Thanks. So one of the things you can look at with this, and I feel like I'm repeating myself a bit because I kind of have said this multiple times recently, is that if you look at the way that games like Slay the Spire unlock their content, it has like this multiple, it has a set of effects on the overall experience of the player as the player gets better at the game. So when you play Slay the Spire or a lot of the games based on it, as you play the game more frequently, you unlock more relics. You unlock a larger pool of things to get during the game. And you get more relics, you get more cards, you get all of that stuff. And that has a bunch of different effects on how that game feels in terms of the balance of the game as you play it. And I've said this before, but the kind of like surface level good thing that it does for that game that makes Slay the Spire so good is it hides some of the complexity away at the start of the game, but then it gives it to you in a way that feels like it feels like a reward. You know, you're unlocking stuff. So as a player, you just think, oh, a bar went up and I got some things. That's a reward. I feel good now. I got more toys to play with. I'm being rewarded. But it's actually a sneaky way of hiding away the more complex items in the game. And those items don't necessarily just make you more powerful. They introduce things that are harder to use, right? They introduce the things that if you gave them to a new player, they would be like, oh, this game is too complex. I can't do it, right? But the other thing that happens in those games, when you have these item pools that start off small and gradually get bigger, it means that the impact of the randomness, when you get to a, whether it's a deck builder or an auto battler like this, when you get to a store and you pick an item, or even like hit this screenshot on the Steam page where we see 25% obtain a relic. If that relic is being pulled from a random pool of relics, then the outcome of this, doing this action in this story moment, is going to be different. And I don't know if this is how things work in Soul's End, but if this was Slay the Spire, this chance to obtain a relic is going to work differently for a player who has been playing the game for an hour versus a player who's been playing the game for 100 hours, because the player who's playing the game from 100 hours has a larger relic pool, right? And that means that when they click to obtain a relic, they have a much larger variance in the type of relic they get and what it does. And what that means is that this applies to deck builders, it applies to auto battlers like this one, because they are all fundamentally built around using the randomness of a roguelike to give players complications and interesting choices to make about their engine building, right? So engine building is a game design term that you will often hear in board game design spaces. And it's basically any time where you are building up a set of rules for yourself as a player that like have a cool output, right? So when you're playing an RPG and you're like a rogue and you go, oh, I get the dagger that does like poison every 5 hits, and now I want to get the ring that speeds up my attack speed so that my chance of getting the poison is increased. You're doing engine building, like you're kind of creating something. The player is making strategic decisions within the game that affect the output of their character or their build in some way. And that's what these games are about. And if you kind of hide away the big pools of items, the big random pools of cards, relics, all of those things, and you limit it at the start of the game, but then you gradually grow it as players play the game, then the impact that has is the game becomes more difficult for players who have played it for longer, even if they're just playing through the same thing. Like if you've got like, run 1 is you play as the warrior and you have to defeat these 3 areas. If the pool of things becomes more random and the randomness in the game becomes more volatile, the game becomes more difficult for those players naturally. Because let's say that, at the start of the game, let's use this game as a practical example, right? If I wanted to balance this game, I would think about, so in that last match, we had poison and we had fire, and they were 2 different like area damage over time effects we could get. And one approach you could do is you could start the game with lots of the poison stuff in the pool, so it's very easy to obtain, and the fire stuff is not so easy to obtain, or some of it's just not in the pool yet, right? And what that would mean is that early on in the game, it's very easy for players to go, oh, there's a really easy poison synergy, so I'll just always build around poison. But then maybe after they complete a few runs and they unlock some stuff, they get more of the fire elements in their deck, whether they're relics related to fire or units or the items that you place on the board. And that now means that they're tempted to pick the fire options because they've got these new toys. But the overall pool is now more random and less weighted towards poison, right? So they're less if they continue trying to do the poison strategy that they did in their first few runs, that's actually going to be more difficult for them now because the randomness is more random. There's more randomness in the game, and there are fewer elements in those random pools that fit with the first strategy they did, right? So I think the thing that I would look at with this type of game is your kind of, I guess I would call it like content scheduling of like, if someone's played the game for, imagine 3 different points in the game, right? A player who is playing the game for the first hour, a player who's playing the game for the 10th hour, and a player who's playing the game for the 100th hour, or whether you think of those as runs or hours or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But these very like extreme different stages of, your ideal player who gets really into this game, plays it for 100 hours. At different stages of that, what stuff will they have unlocked? And how will that affect what we call the decision space in the game? In terms of like all the choices they have to make about what they put together and how it works. What will be available to players at different stages of the game? And you can make it so the decision space at the beginning is very simple. It's just like, oh, do I go ice or poison? And it's mostly that. And you can see that the fire's in there, but maybe there just aren't enough fire units and items to make fire a really viable strategy. And then after you've played a few runs, more fire stuff starts to filter in. And that makes fire a viable strategy now. And it also waters down the pool, so you're less likely to be able to build towards ice or poison or whatever was previously there. So that's kind of what I would do to approach balancing for this. In like apps and stuff, you have what's called like a user experience journey where you write down like in the user will open the app and do this, and then they'll kind of like write a description of what it's like to use the app in the first hour or in the 10th hour and stuff like that. Like, how does the player's relationship to the app change over time? And I think when you're doing balancing, it's very easy to jump straight into numbers. But the thing about balancing is that, as a designer and like with your player community, which it sounds like you've already got with this game, you need to decide what balanced means, right? And balancing for a single player roguelike isn't necessarily like about fairness. It's about making the game interesting, making the decision space interesting, and making it so that it feels, and this is more of a roguelite thing than a roguelike thing, but if you have some sort of meta progression in the game, the meta progression in deep roguelikes isn't necessarily about just making the player character more powerful. That's what they do in Hades to make that a kind of more casual action-y game. But in these kind of more strategic games like deck builders, autobattlers, that are all about making crunchy strategic decisions about how you combine things and how you build your engine, the metagame progression, the bit that makes it a roguelite rather than a roguelike, is actually about unlocking complexity, unlocking a wider range of variants so that the game sort of automatically balances, because the longer you've been playing it, the more random it is, and the elements that are in it are like harder to use. They're more difficult to use. Like in a deck builder, you start to get cards where the payoff of that card is really cool, but it requires you to build around it in a certain way, right? So you're kind of... what I would say about balancing is don't rush straight into the numbers side of things. Start with the qualitative side of things and just sort of like work out this kind of story of, in their first run, the player will do this and learn this. In their 10th run, the player will now have access to this, this, and this, and do this. In their 100th run, and I think if you do that kind of thinking, you'll end up in a good place with this. And it may be that some of the game is already doing that very well, but yeah, I really, really like this. And the fact that you're already kind of, you've got people playing it and you're kind of starting to ask those kind of questions is really good. But yeah, start with the qualitative thing of like, how do you want how do you want the player experience to be at different stages, and then you can kind of massage the numbers to produce that. Cool. Let's check out Leave Us Alone, which is a bug-based, turn-based deck-building auto-battler with deep strategic play. Build an army of cute yet powerful creatures of the magical forest to defend against the world-consuming voidling. So we're doing like woodland creatures and bugs and stuff versus sort of cutesy eldritch shadow demon type thing. There's some really nice presentation here. Let's see if it lives up to it in the kind of UX and sound and everything. We get blasted. Primary faction, Windrunner, free and swift. Specializes in controlling the battlefield by moving both enemy and friendly units. So we're going to be like pushing characters around with this build. We've also got Soul Society. Harness the power of the sun, focuses on generating and consuming sunlight to create large creatures, and grows stronger by winning duels. This is like, I guess, a kind of a green build in Magic the Gathering, or a druid in Hearthstone. It's all about growth. But this is like... There's a really annoying string stab in the music that's going... Okay, we'll do the Windrunner first. That's who we're being encouraged to do. So we got these kind of Wind in the Willows MFs. We've got a Gecko. We've got a Froggy. We've got a Robin. We've got a Bunny Warrior. Let's see how this goes. And there's something about an ally faction, so maybe you can mix them a little bit, which is neat. I like the kind of combinations you get out of like having classes or suits in a game and then occasionally being able to mix them. It was one of the things I liked about Roguebook. At the start of each round, your army is deployed automatically up to your dude value. Even if your barrack contains more units, you may not deploy beyond... Okay, so this is how many units we can deploy. Due to the chaotic nature of war, you have no control on where each unit are deployed. Okay. We don't decide where they go. That's an interesting choice. Because, like... Well, it's just like a normal thing in the genre to choose the placement of them. I want to see what we get from the randomness here. Because it's like we're taking away a choice from the player. We've been explained that through thematic reasons in this explanation. It's because war is chaotic. That doesn't, as a player, that doesn't convince me of why this design choice has been made when I'm used to playing these games and used to choosing where my units go. Luckily, you can change the tide of battle by using units' activate abilities. Units with an activate ability will glow to indicate they can be activated. Okay, so I think what's probably happened is some of the abilities are broken if you put the characters in certain places. So in order to counteract that, they've made it so you can't choose the placement. And that's like meant to fix something broken about the activate abilities. We'll see if it feels right. Some activate effects have a cost listed before the thing. Okay, so this is where we need our sunshine, which is like our mana. You can also use your commander's ability, which refreshes every round. Okay, so what can she do? Make any unit perform backslide. She can push units back. This guy has reposition. Choose a tile on your side, move there. If it's occupied, swap positions instead. Okay. And then everyone else is just going to fight. So it's only the yellow guys that we need to worry about, like, kind of knowing what they do when we click on them. Yeah. Okay, let's see how this goes. After all pre-combat effects are resolved, the frontmost unit of each row on both sides will enter a duel. Units with the higher attack wins. In case of a tie, player wins due to home advantage. Okay, the losing unit will be destroyed. Beside dying when losing a duel, a unit will also die if its attack is reduced to 0 or below. Player units that die will enter the infirmary to recover and return to the barrack at the start of the new stage. Dead enemy units will regenerate and return next round. I say this a lot, but try to avoid having really thumping music and then requiring players to read at the same time. They are really things that do not go well together. This kind of music is for an action sequence. It is not for reading to. So if you've got a tutorial with lots of reading, either put some different music under it that's more kind of relaxing and conducive to reading. Like, can you imagine sitting in your house reading a book with this music on? Some of you might be able to do that, but most people couldn't, because it just doesn't go as a set of activities. It's kind of stimulating in a way that is not conducive to music. The other way of doing it is you use whatever effects in your IDE, and like when you bring up the text bubble, you take the top end of the music off so it sounds like it's muffled. And it's like, hey, it's time to read now. Music muffles. Click next. Something happens in the game. Music comes back up. And that can kind of make it more exciting as well, because it means our action moments are more pronounced. But yeah, think about that stuff. If the player's army has a higher total, the enemy commander takes damage equal to the difference between the totals. Okay. Reduce the enemy commander's HP to 0 before the end of the final round, or the world will be corrupted and the player will lose. Okay. I would also say, when you're explaining a very mechanical game, you can probably leave the thematics out of the tutorial. You don't need to say the world will be corrupted in the tutorial. You can just say the player will lose. Then when the player loses, we get a game over moment where the world gets corrupted and we go, oh, that sucks. That's why I don't want to lose, right? So try to avoid mixing. You can get away with it sometimes. Some games have tutorials that are very kind of voicey and characterful, and they have like characters expressing themselves and stuff in. But if you're making a board game or a card game where people are just specifically there for strategy, I would avoid that during the tutorial, because it helps you reduce the amount of words, and then you can allow the thematics to come through in the art, in what actually happens when you're playing the game, rather than like in a place where it actually causes damage. You know, like having more words in the tutorial is going to have a negative impact. So putting like flowery words that muddy the meaning of what you're being told to do, just, I don't think it's a good call in most cases. Okay, continue. Okay. In between stages, you draft new units. I'm just going to ignore that and see how intuitive it is if I ignore that step. I want viney. I want a little plant. Spells and relics. Okay. I'm going to grow my viney. That was a nice that kind of UX of kind of clicking the spell and clicking on the unit felt nice. Repeatable. Activate. That costs an enemy unit moves to the front of this row, swapping positions if needed. There we go. Okay. So that costs one more to use it all the time. So I can just move all of these guys into this row. Okay, so I don't get to choose where my guys go, and then I have a lot of kind of like these active abilities that the units have. You don't use them during the combat. You use them as part of the preparation. Choose a tile on your side. Move there. If it's occupied, swap positions instead. Activate. Move any unit to an empty tile in this row on its side. So the guys with the green borders have an ability that doesn't cost anything, and the yellow borders have an ability that costs sunshine. I think that's what we're doing. Let's see how we do. That's cool. I like that. It's neat. So I had a query at the start, and I was like, I'm not sure why we don't get to choose where our units go. And already we can see that, like, well, actually that opens some interesting stuff because all of the abilities are about like how you reposition them. I think part of there might be a small problem here in that all of these abilities that are about repositioning characters don't feel very like thematic in an exciting way. It's like, oh, I've got this guy. That means I can swap with that guy, which isn't quite the same as like having an ability that does something cool, because all of the abilities are about pre-combat arrangements of things. But it feels interesting. It's just like whether it's kind of interesting in a way that is kind of appealing and satisfying, you know? We can get a new unit. Move any unit to an empty tile in this row on its side. Get some spells. The spells are single shot, single use. Okay, so this guy, move any unit to an empty tile in this row on its side. It feels like a bit of a crunchy puzzle because I need to go through and read what they all do in order to like understand how to use anything on my side. It's very like interconnected. An enemy unit moves to the front of this row, swapping positions if needed. I think the other problem that I can see is there's not like an obvious meaning to the way that these characters are designed. These guys regenerate at the end of the round. So do I want to focus on killing the bigger guys or the smaller guys? I feel almost like what I'm experiencing is that the game has told me loads of stuff and I sort of understand most of it, but now the set of things that I have to think about is just already too broad and interconnected, because like all of these guys can like manipulate each other and move each other around. But I don't really understand what the outcome of doing that is because I haven't been able to play enough. So I almost feel like we need less tutorial, more learning by doing, and more incremental learning where you have a smaller set of things to deal with. It feels a bit like the tutorial is based around like telling you how the game works rather than structuring the game in a way that you can just learn how to do it by playing it. And that means that like these kind of different moves they can do, they're all swapping each other around, and I don't understand the impact of doing that, because in order to understand, everything is based on swapping around the positions before you start the fight. But I don't really understand what the impact of the positions is, because none of these are like obviously legible things where it's like, there's a guy with a bow, so I should put them at the back, right? So, there's like a little bit of a problem of the theming where when it's kind of generic fantasy, even if you don't understand the game, you can go, oh, I'll put my wizards and my archers at the back because that's where they go. And I can sort of see that this is... The bunny is a frontline warrior. But it's not obvious to me who should go where. And the theming is causing a bit of that problem. And also just like the density of stuff that we've got up to quite quickly. Without just being able to try it out with a kind of smaller on Battlefield and just see how things in the game work. See, that's something you don't want to happen too much. I won and I don't know how. Right? I won and I don't know how. Not a great feeling. Right. He can reposition choose a tile on your side, move there if it's occupied, swap positions instead. Okay, so I would put him there and then the weaker ones in front. What's the benefit of doing that? I'm not sure. Repeatable, activate 1. An enemy unit moves to the front of its row, swapping positions if needed. So, I see that ability, and I understand that I can swap these guys around with that ability. But the problem is I don't understand why I would want to do that. I don't understand whether it's better to have the 2 in front. I guess the 2 is weaker, so maybe I want the weaker one in front, so I do that. But these are like interactions that I should be learning by playing... It's like I should be playing a very small match a lot of times and learning the interactions by seeing them happen. But I've just been told loads of stuff and then given lots of different abilities to think about from the get-go. And I don't think that's the right way to teach that. I don't think that's the right way to teach that kind of thing. Yeah, it was a win, because like, I'm taking the health off there. This is how many rounds I have to defeat them, and this is how much health they have. So I am winning, but I just don't feel like the choices I'm making are really contributing to me winning. Right, what does this guy do again? Move any unit to an empty tile in this row. In this row on its side. Okay, you come over here. So that guy, is that guy going to get through because there's no one blocking him? Right, so I think we lost. Yeah, because I didn't deal enough damage in the amount of rounds that we had. Let's try again. It does feel random. Okay, so we want to pull them over there because we've got units up here. Choose a tile on your side. Okay, so we're just blocking the 2 lanes that they're in. Sure. You know, she's glowing with this big ability. Make any unit perform backslide. Move to the backmost position, shifting all units past forward. Okay. Like... If... I think... It's difficult. I really like the art. I like the theming. There's loads of UX stuff that's very, very good here. The theming is getting in the way of understanding the gameplay, and the onboarding is structured in such a way that you have too many things to think about too early on that are too abstract. Because there's nothing where I can just look at the art and go, that's an archer, that should go there, right? Everything I can do with my turn, which is just kind of moving the units around, is based on the rules that are hidden in that hover over text. And there is Alec, you're thinking too much about the strategic decision. I'm trying to think about the way that the game is structured in order to give you the information that you need in order to play it in the first place. I don't care about playing the game well right now. The issue is that every choice I can make as a player is hidden in the characters, which are basically cards, and I need to hover over them to see what they can do. It's very difficult to internalize what each character does because there's nothing about the theme that supports it. And there are no actions that I can do as a player that are just inherently obvious without reading, right? So what we've basically got is a card game where each of these characters on the board is a card, but in order to read the card, I need to hover over it and see the helper text. So when I just look at the board without hovering over every character and reading what they do, there's not enough information available to me to do anything that feels like playing a game. Right? Because I need to understand what they all do, which is basically dependent on memory, like reading each of them and memorizing it. Because it's not obvious what any of them do, because they're not like kind of classic strategy fantasy characters that the archer does this, the wizard does this type thing. So the theming is kind of harming the mnemonic effect that characterization should have in a strategy game, because when you have like character designs in a strategy game, they're supposed to have a mnemonic effect or a heuristic effect. They help you to, a heuristic is something that helps you to understand something, and mnemonic is something that helps you to remember it, right? And there's not much about the fact that this character is a frog and this is a bunny with a sword that makes it clear what they do. And that means that when you look at the board and you're not going around reading the individual cards, you can't remember what anything on the board does. And that means you can't just look at the board and work out what you need to do. It feels like there's something about the structure of the game that is making it very hard to learn how to play. And it shouldn't be, maybe. Okay, this guy has an ability that boosts someone's attack. So I'm going to go for that because I've been waiting for something like that, because just moving them around is deeply unsatisfying. I think the other thing is that all of the abilities we start with are just about moving stuff around, and that is not the cool part of a strategy battle necessarily. It's something you just sort of take for granted that you'd be able to do. So this guy can reposition to wherever you want. So we're going to move him down there. So we've got 4 versus 2 in that lane. We've got 2 versus 3 in this lane. This lane, we want him down there. And then this guy can boost someone. We'll do that to them. We didn't really need to do that, but that's a bit more thematically obvious to me, that you've got like a bard character and that increases the attack of another character because they're like inspiring them. That's a bit more obvious. I think some of the base characters, it's just not obvious why they do what they do. That makes it hard to read the board state and understand what you can do with your starting characters. Okay, we've got a Plants vs. Zombie Sunflower. He harvests sun by having more friendly units in the row. So that's interesting. So that gives us a different reason for repositioning. So that guy, we pull him over there. He's going to harvest more sun now. But now we need to put this lane. So we move them down there. And we're going to lose the top lane, I guess. But you go up there. And this guy will boost that guy. And then we should be okay, I think. I think it might be a problem with the starting deck as well, because as soon as I've got some characters that do different things other than just moving other characters around, it starts to feel interesting. It starts to feel like a compelling thing that I want to do. But the problem I was experiencing it. So the frog moves other units, right? To the frog moves other units to the row that it's in. So I can usually use the frog to manipulate the sunflower and bring it in so we at least get like one thing from the sunflower. This guy inspires someone else and increases their power. So I'll put that in that lane because that's a weak lane and then bring him down here. Right, as soon as you've got some units that do stuff other than just moving other units around, the game becomes really interesting. But I think the starting green deck is maybe not a good way to learn the game because You start playing the game and you're like, all I do is move guys around. Now it feels like we're doing something cool. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quit out of this and restart it and start with the yellow deck. And just imagine that we've started the game for the first time and see if it feels more interesting. Because I think starting with all... The wind deck, the green deck, is all kind of position manipulation abilities. And they don't make sense when you first start playing the game. And I think it's because that's just not the thing that you expect to be important in one of these games. Oh, I don't know what she did. Clicked on her by accident. Did I just debuff myself? Let me just start that again. So I think the problem that I'm experiencing might not be that major, but I would start people off with the yellow deck and just don't let them use the green deck straight away, because it's kind of underwhelming to start with just a bunch of position-based stuff when you feel like you're supposed to be doing a combat. Right, so Viney, an enemy unit moves to the front of this row, swapping positions if needed. I'm not totally sure that I understand the benefit of where these guys are in their row. And again, I might have missed something in the tutorial, but this is the problem with having a wordy tutorial that front loads information rather than requiring you to do things in order to learn them. And I deliberately don't approach tutorials in games very thoroughly, because that's how the vast majority of your players will approach a tutorial as well. This guy, friendly unit gains champion, then it adds a sunshine and attack until end of stage. Prioritize for duels regardless of position unless another champion is in the same row. Mimosa, activate that temporary. Oh, that reduces someone's attack. So it reduces her attack? I don't understand that ability. And I don't understand her ability. I don't understand the benefit of these guys being further forward or further back, because that doesn't seem to affect anything when the combat starts. It is basically about having the bigger number in every row, yes. But the issue I'm trying to get at is that with the starting, the deck that encourages you to use the first time, all of the abilities do some version of move this character here or move another character here. And because those abilities are very similar in nature, it makes it hard to just look at the board and internalize what all of your characters do, because they're too similar, right? All of that wind-based deck, and it makes perfect sense thematically. It's wind. It's about movement. It's about moving stuff around. As soon as I switch to the sun deck, where there's a little bit more variety in what the characters do, it's easier to look at them and learn that they do different things and go, oh, that's the guy that does that. That's the guy that does that. And that was the problem I was having with the first deck. So I can see what the game is about. I can see the goal is to like have more attack in each row than the other, or match their attack because you win if you draw. But having the main thing you can do as a player is activating the abilities of your characters, and they all do very similar things, and the only way to see what they do is to like individually hover over them and read them all. And that's like not great from a kind of the perspective of like the UX and what you're actually asking the player to do in terms of like learning and applying the information. Because what you're really doing is like, here is a grid and they have some cards on, and if that was on a board game, you could quickly like look at the and you could always glance at the cards. But here you can never see two cards at once, because all of the things that the characters can do is buried down a layer in the UX in that tooltip that pops up. And that means it's really important for the characters to be intuitive, or at least the starting characters, so that you can look at them and go, oh yeah, Froggy does this, Viney does this. the archer does this, that kind of thing. And it doesn't have that quality when you play it with the green deck that it encourages you to start off with, because they all just do position manipulation abilities. When this unit performs dash, temporarily +2 for each spot moved. That's cool. I like that. So we want dash the raspberry to start further back. And we can use that to backslide it and then deliberately push it forward again. So if let's just see if that works. Use that ability on them, then use their ability. When the unit performs dash, move to the frontmost position, shifting all units past backwards. Okay. But I can't... That's not an active? That ability is a little bit confusing as well. Okay, so she gives us a sun and loses her attack. We don't want to do that this round. Let's just leave her there to defend, and then we're going to win the rest anyway, so just leave everyone where they are. Does mean sometimes the luck of the draw is just going to set you up that way. Like I had a lot of unused abilities because I needed to just spot the fact that we were already in a good position to win. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think you can have, a big thing in any kind of game that is about beating an opponent is about spotting opportunities. So you can have like a situation where the game randomizes and it's kind of your job as a player to look at the situation and go, oh, actually, I don't need to move anything. I think that's fine. I don't think that's necessarily a problem what just happened. Robin Hood. I want the Robin. When an enemy unit enters or moves within this row, it temporarily... Okay, so if we pull stuff into the same row as Robin Hood, it lowers its attack. That's neat. Let's buy a relic. When an enemy unit loses attack, it loses an extra attack. That synergizes well with Robin Hood. So we're starting to get some synergistic building with relics and characters going together. I thought I just picked Robin Hood. Where's he gone? Where's my bench? I've got a barrack. There's no one in it. I thought I just added a character. Okay. So... let's pull this one into the top lane, I guess. And I think they're gonna get one more attack because they dash there and they get an attack for every dash they do. Let's just give that a go. I think we're gonna be fine. Yeah, they get 2 attack for dashing forward. I skipped. I didn't want to skip. I wanted my Robin Hood. That's the second time that's happened this week. It happened with a game yesterday where I missed what the skip thing is. Like, I know I skim read things and I do things very quickly, and part of that is streamer brain. But I think people generally are quite distracted, so that's a good thing to try and design for. So, skippable things that players shouldn't usually want to skip, have a confirm step. That's a good place to have that. The B, extra sun and attack until the end of stage for each adjacent unit. Okay. Does adjacent mean on the same row or in any direction? I don't know. I'm going to take the B anyway. I like the B. So Extra attack for each adjacent unit. Each adjacent plant unit, which I don't think... No, these are... That's a plant unit. Okay, so you can see the thematics working there. It's a bee. It gets stronger if it's got more plants around it. Makes perfect sense. Right? Now I can remember that because the character is a bee and the rule makes sense in relation to it being a bee. So I'm like, okay, I need to put the bee next to all the plants. I put it next to the plants. It's going to like be powered up by this guy and this guy. I'm still not sure whether adjacent means all the way around on this hex grid, but we'll just have to see what happens. Now swap these two. That wasn't right. I should have left him up there, but I can't do anything about it this time. I'm going to move this guy up here to defend the top lane. Okay, we've got a very crowded bottom lane this time. What does he do? A friendly unit gains champion. Okay. So I think what we want to do is... We'll get the bee out of that lane. We want to pull some stuff down to this bottom lane. I think we're going to lose this one. Who's that? Oh. Yeah, I think we're just going to lose this round. We'll see what happens. Okay. The bee needs to go up here so that it's between the two plants. That lane's fine. That lane's fine. It's a shame we can't... That should do it, I think. I'm going to get the sunflower because then I have a better chance of triggering the bee because the bee just needs loads of plants around it. We can just like build a super bee. When bunny warrior duels +2 attack until end of stage. Well, we've got a bunny warrior, so let's get one of those. I don't know whether you can get more than one of the... I guess you can because I was offered another flower. Okay. He's going to go there. Top lane is a little bit under defended. Don't think I can do anything about that. Gonna have to move on to the next game in a minute. I do think there's something really good here. I like, once you know how to play the game, it feels pretty great. I think the onboarding needs a less telling you loads of stuff up front kind of tutorial. More of a tutorial that really requires you to do the things a few times, you know? It's not just do this, you do it. Now do this, you do it. It is do this a few times until you understand what you're doing before you introduce the new next concept. I also just think the setting the game up so that the first set of characters that you get all do variations on a very similar thing. I can kind of see the rationale behind it because it is a game about positioning, but it makes it very hard to differentiate that first set of characters because they're just too similar. You can't, like, it's not very easy to, like, look at them and go, okay, I can see what all of these guys do, because they're just that set of green characters that we get in the wind deck is just all too similar to each other, and that makes it hard to get over that initial hurdle of learning the first piece of the game. So at the moment, this feels like a really solid game, nice theming, but just the way that it teaches itself doesn't get you quick enough to what would be enjoyable about the game. Because kind of what it's doing fundamentally is like, we've broken one part of this game, you can't place your own characters, but we've given you some tools to be able to place your own characters, and it's like, okay, but what's kind of cool about that? And it only really becomes cool and interesting and exciting when you realize that if I move my characters around in a clever way, I can increase the damage of this one, or I can make myself generate more resources and stuff. And that wasn't available for the first couple of rounds playing with the starter deck, or whatever you want to call that loadout. So I think that might be a little bit of a mistake in terms of onboarding. So I'm just having a look at the notes. The game idea started as a combination of Luck Be a Landlord and Super Auto Pets, but has evolved over its development. It used to have a deep learning curve where most players will drop off in the beginning, but the right audience who kept playing really enjoyed the game. Some critical design decision was made so the early game was more approachable, but since I've been playing the game so much, my perspective on the new player experience is skewed, and I would love to hear your feedback in regard to this. Yeah, it is that problem of the way that the game is structured is you can't see what all of your characters can do at once. And the wind deck, all of the characters do similar things, and we really have to dig down a layer and like hover around and read them all to learn what they do. It's not super intuitive what they all do. You only really start to get into a position where the thematics of the character explain the mechanics when you've got a little bit deeper in and you're starting to mix together different types of characters. And it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense that this type of, it makes sense that the bee gets more powerful by having flowers around it, all of that kind of stuff. So I feel like what the game really needs to do, because like the core mechanics seem quite solid, they're quite enjoyable. I think the music was a little bit repetitive, but it's still an early development, so whatever. But everything about the experience is quite enjoyable once you know how to play the game. The way to fix the onboarding, besides just making a better tutorial, which you'll do over time anyway, like a better tutorial is one that doesn't tell you stuff until you need to do it, and then you do it, and you probably do it more than once before it tells you anything else, right? That's a good tutorial in most cases. But the thing it really needs to do is just start you off with a set of characters that are the most intuitive in terms of how the way that they look relates to what they do. And the wind deck is not like that at all. So just have a think about why that is your kind of first choice, and like maybe don't give players a choice between two decks to start off with as well, because you just give players a chance at ruining their first experience. It's okay for testing because you want to see what people feel about the two different things. But my experience was the yellow deck was a better one to start off people with, because you've got the problem of it not being intuitive in terms of what the characters do, but you've also got the problem of appeal. And the wind deck that we started off with just made me think, oh, I can move stuff around. That's not like an exciting thing to be able to do, because it doesn't feel like you're powerful. It just feels like you're getting a ability that you normally would have in these games, which is to choose where your guys go, And it clearly is a core thing that you need to do in the game, but it's not necessarily an exciting thing. And talking about this earlier as well, onboarding isn't just about teaching people your game. It's about getting them excited enough that they want to play your game. Because if your onboarding is just teaching people to play the game, you're kind of making the assumption that they want to play the game, and your onboarding really needs to kind of convince people that they want to play the game, otherwise they won't sit through the tutorial. Right. Last game of the day, let's check out I Won't Let You Level Up in My Goblin Town. This looked like the quirkiest game of the 3 that we had ready for today. Last question in the chat. I don't know what you mean by saying you created an account on Indie Game Clinic. My website does not have a way to create an account. There is a form that you send games in. There's lots of stuff in the backlog. Lots of games to choose from. If you cannot be bothered to learn how to work out how to use the form, I do not feel strongly inclined to help you with that. This game is played in a first-person perspective. Move with WASD, pick up items with the left and right mouse buttons, throw items by holding said buttons, talk to the townspeople for hints and explore to find item locations. You will need them when battle starts. Start battle by crossing the bridge that leads out of town. Okay. This looks really quirky. So we're doing like a first person... It's kind of like a JRPG where the characters are fighting, but we're outside of the fight and we're like throwing in objects. As human kingdoms spread after the defeat of the... Goblin Town, population 8, established at 52 HE, GDP 2.3, alignment chaotic neutral. We've got some pro-goblin propaganda here. Goblins are chaotic neutral. Morning, Scoutblin. Another good day in Goblin Town. I'll go out to gather herbs to make potions with today. You'll go out scouting for parties of adventurers, right? Oh, if you look away from them, the dialogue ends. Oh no, I think I just clicked on the last one. Okay, health potions. You submit the game, right? You submit the game by the form on the website. But I'm not being funny, but if you go on the website and you can't read the website enough to submit the game on the form, that indicates that I don't understand how you could be someone that has gone to all the effort to like learn to code and make a game and not be able to operate a form on a website. So like, you use the information that's available to you. I've made it as simple as I can. I can't help you in the middle of a stream to operate a form on a website. Find a local game dev club, take your games to that, get them playtested by random people, and start there. There's a really nice feel to picking the objects up and throwing them and the way they bounce. I do like this art style. It's kind of reminiscent of sort of like Ultima Underworld or something like that. It is incredibly crunchy and kind of becomes a little bit difficult to read what you see, what item, like objects you can see when you look over that way, but we'll kind of see how it works when we're trying to actually play the game. Hello, I'm itching for a fight. Okay, this is, so the character we're playing, the Scoutblin, doesn't fight. They just look for Start battle, press interact. Okay. An adventurer. I won't let you level up in my Goblin town. That's fair enough. You should never let people level up in your Goblin town. Okay, so if I were to go and grab a potion... Have some MP! Yeah! Give you some armor. This is such a good concept. The execution already looks brilliant. I mean, people are going to feel like different kinds of ways about the art and the way that this is presented, but I think it's incredibly charming. And then this kind of... It's already kind of creating a mini game of needing to remember where the things are in the town based on watching the battle. Oh yeah, so when you say I can leave the battlefield, I am not that character. That's the guy that we spoke to over here, right? So the idea is that the kind of JRPG combat is happening, and we are just we're just kind of on the outside of it, helping out like a little squire. It's fantastic. If you're on the Patreon, the stuff to submit is in the Discord. So if you can't get in, again, this is stuff that is better to resolve on the platform when I'm not in the middle of a stream, right? On Patreon, in order to get a link to a Discord from Patreon, you need to have your Patreon account linked to Discord. So in Patreon, you have to link your Discord account. Otherwise, it won't show you any of the Discord stuff. So when you join a Patreon that has a Discord connection, if your Patreon account doesn't have a Discord account linked to it, it won't show you any of the stuff. Right? So you have to link that, and then it will give you a link to the Discord, and then all of the stuff is in the Discord. But this is stuff that we really shouldn't be resolving in the middle of the stream. So... Right. I did it! The pathetic worm ran away! I'm exhausted. Think I'll lie down at home for a bit. You ran around a whole lot, so you'd best do the same, Scout Bin. Okay. Hello. Thank the Demon Lord for our defend, Blin. He did away with that wannabe hero, no problem. I'll make sure to sharpen the weapons he used before any more heroes show up. It's very easy to like accidentally re-trigger the dialogue, which can be a little bit irritating, but it's fine. Sleep. See, it's really funny, like, memory as a game mechanic can be really interesting or really irritating. Spatial memory, quite an interesting concept because it gives you a reason to like learn the layout of a level, which is kind of different from like having to read things and remember what they said. I think you have to be quite invested in a game to want to read a bunch of stuff and remember what they said, which is the problem. The UX problem I was having in the previous game was it was basically a game where there were I had a hand of cards, but they were all hidden from me and I had to read them one by one and remember what they did. That's kind of what the experience of trying to learn the last game was like. Whereas like having to remember where things are, it kind of adds a layer to a 3D game that justifies why it's 3D. Like often when people are very new and learning game development and they want to immediately go into 3D, I'm like, why do you want to learn 3D? Because there's a bunch of additional challenges when you're learning 3D game development that maybe make it not the best place to start out. And this is a really good example of a game that justifies being in 3D, because where things are matters, and like which angles you can see them from matters, and that's like really, that's kind of neat to see. I was surprised by the fight yesterday. I came running so fast I dropped my harvesting daggers up in the mountains. Don't forget you can carry 2 items at a time. Climbing up there and returning with just 1 item would be quite a waste. That farmer yesterday was using a dirty trick called rend. I'll be sure to pay it forward. With the weapon he left behind and some MP, I can rend any heroes that dare approach. Okay, so he's leveled up. He's leveled up in the Goblin town. Right, Blin, I'm so proud of you. Pretty nice goblin town. Hello, Farmer Slime. But now I'm growing red flowers. In another day or two, they should be ready to harvest. Grow them at our herbalist to make their specialized potions. Our smith can use their fibers to make a throwing net. Okay, so we've got some sort of farming stuff. But it's kind of automatic. It's going on in the background and it's the other characters doing it, which makes a lot of sense. It fits with the setting. It kind of gives us a little kind of schedule of systems to remember as well. Hello. Elderblin. Yesterday's hero left his mighty weapon behind. A regular hoe used for farming. It doesn't increase attack much, but does have an ability that slows down the enemy. Okay. So now I can slow down the enemy with this. I need to remember. And you can also right-click stuff to put it in your right hand. So you've got this kind of goofy little bit of inventory management that is just like 2 items, 1 in each hand, which is it's quite sweet. It kind of really helps with the theme that you're a servant of sorts as well. Use these metals. Use them. Okay, let's start the next fight. I mean, you can already see that this has got its hooks into me because we've got a clear game loop of like get up in the morning, go and trigger a fight, help out with the fight. And the game is already kind of enticing me to wander around and explore it and look at all the kind of other things that are in the game, even though nothing in the game has told me to do that. It's just sort of naturally occurring because of the optionality of the combat. It's not forcing us to go into the next bit without having a wander around first. Seems to be an herbalist. She'll be trying to heal, so I need to wear down her MP first. Okay, I don't remember being told how to do that. You can throw things from really far as well, which is quite amusing. And then also the level design has done this thing where if you miss the bridge, you'll fall down and you have to go round. So there's like a little bit of a kind of precision thing to how you actually get here. So there's a decision point here of like, do I go over the bridge so I've got an easy throw, or do I try and throw things from here? Right? The level design is encouraging all of these different options for like how you handle things. Again, it's like a really good example of like what the 3D-ness of this game gives you in terms of gameplay. You've got like the spatial stuff, remembering where things are. You've got like options of like, do I get close and get an easier throw, or do I throw this thing from further away? You need some red potions. I'll get you 2 potions. You want potions? I'm your guy. I don't know what else I've got to help him out with, though. I'll run out of stuff. Ah, he won. Nighttime. I'm a big fan of like games that are all set in one location but have quite a lot of depth in how they explore that location as well. It's quite neat. I'm not sure what you can throw at the enemy. I haven't been given anything that is like obviously that yet. Okay. Yeah, we haven't been given anything that... Yeah, it says that... it said that the horseshoe can stun, but I think that's just like an accidental thing that can happen when you're trying to help your buddy. I mean, you could make a friend slot version of this, but friend slot games are online co-op games, and I could see an online co-op version of this being viable, but it would be a very different game. So he just kind of keeps telling you how the battle system works. You need some armor. I love the way that the camera kind of sets so it looks like we're about to start a JRPG combat and then it's actually just your character's eyes. Okay, potion, health potion, and then damage, I guess. I keep forgetting I can hold two things. Mate, no! I have a hammer. I think we can stack the armor on top of itself and the weapons. That was what he was just telling us, so let's try it. Let's... Extra armor, extra swords. One of each potion again. Don't know how to make him faster. Oh, we can... Hang on. We can give him his own healing ability and also give him the weapon that slows the enemy down. He can heal himself now. With the power of magical goblin ganja. He has 0 speed. I don't know how to fix that. Maybe we can... If I give him the other clothes, will he... No, that's magic defense. That's not going to help. We've run out of potions. I stunned him. I clonked him on the head with a horseshoe. Poop. We can throw poop. This is my kind of game. It's useless now because it's for marking priority targets, so we don't really... It's too strong. Oh, maybe this is a... Is this a we can't actually win it type thing? Is it one of those? You don't look like you're worth much XP. Oh, well, die, Goblin. You killed me. I don't have enough XP. Toss me some red flowers, and I'm okay. You're the potion man. So I could have done that during the last fight. Goblins are highly allergic to turnips. Why are we growing them then? Okay. So we've got our potions, and then we can make them during the combat as well. What is going to be the increased speed item? Oh, defense -1. Our Elderblin often needs paper for his research on human culture. I make it for him out of locally grown wood. Okay. Is it going to just give us the same enemy again? The goblin telling us about the mountains behind town. Okay, I did wonder whether we could go out of town, but I thought it would all be from that same way. We can wash off status effects with a bucket of water. And also, so I need to remember that. The mountains behind town thing is not super intuitive to me, because the only way I can see out of town is the bit where it asks if you want to start the combat. Because that's human town over there. We can't go that way. Okay, I'm just going to start the next battle. Ah, the stuff I pre-positioned is not there anymore. It's kind of like we're trying to get a heal every time, although I've given them the ability to heal themselves this time, so maybe we've got a little bit more of a window. Lower her defense. And then give him the slow attack. And some more mana, I think, because he's healing himself now, so... Nothing else we need from here because we just slow him down too much. So we're just going to keep stocking him up with health and stuff. Oh, we're getting the red. We're getting the red. Ah! You can do it. Why was his speed be 0 though? I didn't add loads of items. His speed was 0 before because I put loads of armor and stuff on him. But I didn't do that this time. He's still attacking. He's still attacking now. Yeah, he's winning. He's winning. Yeah, we're gonna do it. What a great fight! So I'm going to have to wrap this up in a second because we've got to 12, but I just want to see whether we can get into the mountain. I get the impression that you can give the enemy any item. So you can kind of like, if you were to like accidentally throw something good at the enemy, you would power them up. Because I threw the acid at them to lower their defense, and I don't see any like, there's no like demarcation to say which items are things that you throw at which person. So yeah, this is pretty great. I do want to play more of it. It feels like a sort of thing I could probably do a very long session with. It's very kind of... It's very charming. I like this whole kind of small location that gradually gets things added to it and maybe changes over time thing. It's kind of one of my favorite things in games. What I liked about like the original Harvest Moon games. Oh, there's a harvesting dagger. So those are... Can I actually give that back to that guy? No, he's just basically just telling us where that weapon is so that you can give it to the guy during a combat. Oh, I broke it. Yeah, that's wicked. That is... I won't let you level up in my Goblin town, which is a very funny name. And I'm glad the game was just as amusing to play. It is a little bit visually confusing sometimes, just looking at it and like trying to work out how far away things are and stuff. I occasionally think maybe, you know, like having these trees a slightly different color so they stand out from the fence and stuff would be cool. But I think aesthetically it's really appealing. The problem with someone said this would make a good friend slop game if this was like a multiplayer co-op version of this. And I think it probably would, but I think you would struggle to get people who like those games to play a game that looks like this. And I think one thing I also want to commend this game for is lots of people have this idea of like, we're going to make a game that's like a satire or a pastiche of this type of game, but you play as the people who are usually the bad guys. So it's like a JRPG where you play as the goblins or the slimes or something. And what I like about what you've done here is you've gone down that route, and that can be quite trite. It can be like quite a creatively boring route to go down if you don't actually do something interesting with the gameplay, right? Because saying, oh, we're going to make a JRPG, but you're the slimes, and then it's just a normal JRPG, and it's just a thematic change. That's not very interesting. But doing the kind of role swapping and making you the goblins, and then like designing a whole new game around that thematic swap is really neat and charming, and it feels very like there's something quite endearing about this relationship of like, I'm indirectly helping the character, and He's like, you know, your big buddy who's fighting and you're doing all of this throwing, which feels quite slapstick. You compare it to Healer yesterday. We had a long discussion about the game Healer that Valentin in the Patreon community is working on, and how like it felt kind of unsatisfying in that game to be a healer or a helper because the individual things you were doing to like do that weren't very satisfying or interesting. Whereas like running around the space, learning where things are, throwing objects, making split-second decisions about whether it's better to go across the bridge or throw something from a distance. All of that makes this kind of, you know, playing the support role to a more kind of passive battle really kind of fun. And it's kind of a good example of like, it's not necessarily like the overarching goal of what you're doing that is interesting. It's what that requires you to do as a player that makes the moment-to-moment game fun to do. Yeah, Pepper, I think Bog might help with the kind of distance and reading what the objects are at different distances as well. Yeah, thanks for joining today. If you've joined the Discord and you're having trouble finding where stuff is, I will speak to you in there later in the day if you need some help. But for now, I've got to go to a couple of meetings in the real world. I have to go and meet people in the real world. I don't know why I agreed to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to stay here in this goblin land made of pixels and throw a knife at my friend so that he can fight a big muscular woman. But I can't do that because I've promised someone that I will go and meet them. I'm actually later this afternoon I'm meeting some people from a local school because they have a game design BTEC, which is like a course that you would do when you're sort of 16 or 17. And we're getting together some work experience briefs for those students, and they're going to do stuff for the developers in our Discord, which is kind of a very strange proposition. But they approached me and they were like, can you come up with a work experience brief for our game dev students? And I was like, maybe. And then I brainstormed it with some people in the Discord. So some folks in the Discord are going to get some stuff done for their games of varying quality over the next couple of months. But it's the kind of closest thing that we can do to internships, I guess. Hopefully it's helpful for everyone involved, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to a in-person meeting today to work some of the details of that out. And it's just some of the bizarre kind of stuff that I get to do as part of this channel and the surrounding community. So thank you everyone for allowing me to do that, and I will catch you all soon.